Hey fam, what is up? We are starting a new series today and we're talking about hashtags. I mean, they're everywhere, right? Ever since their first suggestion by this guy named Chris Messina in 2007, they've made their way into almost everything, like from Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, wherever you can think of, they are connecting us in a unique way. But you begin to wonder, right? Like, what are the best ones to use? What's the best way to use them, and what makes them such a big deal? Well, as I thought about this and looked into it, I found this list of the top 100 hashtags used today, and I would wonder which of these you may use. And so let's play a quick game. Stick up your hand. We're going to play put a finger down, and just as I read these, go ahead and put a finger down if this is a hashtag that you have used recently. So hashtag FYP. Yeah, definitely use that one. Hashtag follow. That's me. Hashtag TBT. Hashtag selfie. Maybe. Hashtag Visco. Nah, maybe I haven't used, but that's I don't know the last time I used that one, but hashtag no filter. Hashtag food. Yes, I love food. Definitely used that one. Hashtag LOL. Okay. Hashtag music. Hashtag this one's my favorite. Hashtag memes. Yeah, definitely use that one. Where my meme people at? Go ahead and put a finger down. But how about this? That was just in the top 100. Go ahead and restart over. These are the top 10, y'all. Like, check this out. Let me know if you've used these, right? Hashtag love. Hashtag Instagood. Is that even me? Hashtag fashion. Hashtag photo of the day. Hashtag beautiful. Hashtag art. Hashtag photography. Okay, I think I've used that one before. Hashtag happy. Hashtag pick of the day. Didn't we just do that? Photo of the day, pick of the day. Hashtag cute. No, I haven't used that. You know, and maybe whether you use those top 10 or any in the top 100, most of us would agree hashtags are fun to use in a super useful way to connect us. I mean, maybe you're like me and you go through that top 10 and you're like, I've been getting it wrong. Like, I haven't used really any of those. But either way, I would wager most of you, including myself, we've used hashtags at some point. We find them useful, a way to connect, a way to relate with other people on the social media platforms that we're on. But maybe some of these you would even recognize. Hashtag Ice Bucket Challenge. Hashtag He for She. Hashtag Never Again. How about hashtag climate change or hashtag me too? Hashtag end it movement, or one that we've all been more familiar with lately, hashtag Black Lives Matter. Many of these social media campaigns have accomplished big things, right? They've spread awareness about what's wrong in the world and then help make those wrong things right. They've united people in the effort to fight for justice. The power of the hashtag is real. And because of social media and because of its accessibility, it's become an incredible tool for spreading the word about a crisis or injustice quickly, especially for people whose voices are rarely heard. But the real question is simply writing a hashtag or making a post really all it takes to make a difference in the world? Or is it possible that justice is about something more than a hashtag? And so as I've been wrestling with that myself and been looking into different articles related to this idea, especially a lot popping up right now because of what has been going on, I found really interesting things being said. Specifically, this one article that was published by the New Times. And maybe like me, you can relate with what the author Sarah Lippert has to say. She says the issue with hashtag activism is whether or not it's actually making a difference in the world, or if it's just a way for people to feel like they are making a difference. Just because the whole world knows about a problem or acknowledges that it exists doesn't mean that the problem is fixed. Actions need to be taken in order to fix the problem. And most would say that adding a hashtag to social media isn't an effective action, bringing about the term slacktivism. The best way to make a hashtag activism campaign effective is to have a call to action. To make a difference in the world, you have to stop thinking a trending word on social media is going to accomplish anything without a plan. And that's what Sarah Lippert has to say about hashtags when it comes to activism. But basically, to sum up what she is saying and the rest of this article was saying, is that it's more than just creating awareness on an issue that makes a difference. It's actually taking action on it. Because although so much good can be done through social media, there can still be downsides to social media activism. It's easy, today with all the different social media platforms that we have to send a tweet, to post a selfie, or share a video about an inspiring cause or campaign. However, for many of us, including myself, and maybe for you, that's where it ends. And maybe you've asked yourself that question. Is there something more I can do? Is this really all it can take? Or maybe you've even asked, what can I actually do? What is there that I actually can do? Well, I believe there's something you can do, and that's what I want to talk about today. And so I want to start the conversation on what it really means for you, for me, for us to actually make a difference in the fight against injustice. And so to help us understand how, I want to introduce you to a prophet named Micah. Man, if anybody understood injustice, Micah did. Micah was a prophet during one of Israel's worst times of injustice. See, as a prophet, Micah would have talked to the people of Israel on behalf of God, and Israel was messed up during Micah's time. And so he had a lot of injustice he dealt with, and a lot of injustice he spoke to the people of Israel on God's behalf. In fact, when you read the book of Micah, you'll notice the whole thing is basically a bunch of accusations and warnings. He's calling people out, and he's telling them, you gotta change or else. Right? That's what this whole book feels like. In fact, he calls out corrupt cities as a whole. He targets leaders who are gaining wealth through theft and greed. He calls out corrupt prophets offering God's protection for money, right? He even groups leaders and prophets together who he says are running the land through bribery, bending justice to favor the wealthy, and depriving the poor of land security and hope. It's interesting when you read that, because we can look at it even today and see a lot of that going on. But here's the deal. Micah was familiar with injustice. And so he tells us what we can do to be a part of fighting that injustice. What God would like to see us do in response to that injustice. And so in Micah 6:6-8, this is what he has to say. He says, with what shall I come before the Lord and bow down before the exalted God? Shall I come before him with burnt offerings, with calves a year old? Will the Lord be pleased with thousands of rams, with 10,000 rivers of olive oil? Shall I offer my firstborn for my transgression, the fruit of my body for the sin of my soul? He has shown you, O mortal, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? To act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. Micah here talks of offerings and sacrifices. And that's not really something we talk about normally today, but back then it was a cultural norm, much like a hashtag. Instead of a top 10 hashtag list, they would have had a top 10 sacrifices list. And basically what Micah is saying about all this is God doesn't care about that. What pleases God, what he really wants for us, isn't to post another hashtag, but to do three things: to act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly. Instead of making a ton of showy sacrifices at the temple or making a ton of showy posts through a hashtag campaign, Micah tells God's people that God would rather have them live out a faith that results in justice, mercy, and humility. See, God isn't looking for a faith that comes to church, comes to youth group, goes to, a small group, whatever, and says the right things on social media, believes the right things, or participates in the right rituals. He's looking for a faith that goes outside and makes a difference in the world. He's calling his people to do something. Because here's the deal. Don't miss this. If you or I want to do justice, we have to do something. And God invites us into that something. He invites us into a mission to be a part of making a difference, to be a part of helping those who are experiencing injustice find freedom from it. And maybe when you think about that, you realize there is so much wrong in the world around us. I mean, sometimes it can seem like everywhere we look, we see brokenness, tragedy, and injustice. And the magnitude of the world's injustice can seem overwhelming. I mean, just scroll through some of the hashtags that we mentioned earlier, right? And you'll begin to see that injustice and begin to see what I mean. The brokenness, the tragedy. And you can begin to feel overwhelmed. And so maybe you hear me say, do something. But instead of feeling inspired or motivated, you feel helpless or unsure of where to start. And if that's you, if you're anything like me, here's what I want to encourage you with. 2 things. The first is God is the miracle worker, not you or I, not us. God is calling you and I to join him on his mission of making wrong things right in the world. But we have to remember it's ultimately his mission. He alone is the miracle worker. God wants us to join him on his mission so he can use us in amazing ways. And when we join him, when we choose to act justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with him, we get to do just that. And when we live that kind of faith, God can use us to do incredible things in the world. He can use us to make a difference if we are willing. But we have to remember, it's all him. Even Micah understood this. In chapter 3, before 6, where we read earlier, we find him saying this. He says, "But I'm full of courage that the Lord's Spirit gives, and have a strong commitment to justice. This enables me to confront Jacob with its rebellion and Israel with its sin." See, Micah in this moment is expressing the fact that he realizes it's not him. It's on the Lord. It's on God. It's ultimately his mission, and God is giving him the strength, the endurance, and the ability to speak against injustice. And he's just glad to be invited into that opportunity to make a difference. And that leads me to the second thing. And that's this. It's not about doing the perfect thing. It's about doing something. See, it's easy to become overwhelmed by all that's wrong in the world and trying to figure out what we can do to change it, let alone do it right. Right? Like you look at what's going on and you go, what can I even do? And even if I try to do something, am I going to do it correctly? Like what if I mess it up? And then you become overwhelmed, and if you're anything like me, you begin to step back and go, I'll let somebody else take care of that. I mean, even just posting something this past week, when all of this stuff with George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter, all that started, I was scared of what others may say in response to my post. And when I got done with it, I still didn't feel like it was enough. But God isn't calling you to do or change everything, or even to start with the perfect thing. That's way too much for one person. But he has gifted you and I with unique qualities, strengths, and abilities, and experiences that equip us, myself and you, perfectly for whatever good works God has designed for us in advance. Because you can't change the whole world, and you won't do it perfectly, but you can be a part of changing something. And in doing so, then we do actually get to be a part of changing the whole world. Paul puts it this way in Ephesians 2:10. He says, "For we are his workmanship, having been created in Christ Jesus for good works that God prepared beforehand, so we may do them." You are God's masterpiece, created to do his work. Paul tells us here that God created works for us to be a part of, to really make a difference. And when we accept Christ as our Savior and we are made new in him, we get to be a part of that difference. Paul hints on that when we were made new in him, God has works that he's prepared for us to be a part of. And as God's masterpiece, you were created with unique qualities, strengths, and abilities and experiences, all your own. Yet, too many of us sit in isolation because we're unsure of those qualities, strengths, abilities, or experiences. We become too worried about doing the perfect thing. And unfortunately, that has led us to where we are today. Too much silence, not enough doing, and injustice that won't go away. So what you do may look different from others, but if you step out and actually do what you can, that is where change starts. I love the way one pastor puts it. To be silent is to agree. To do nothing is to agree. And so where can you start? Where can I start? Because it's not about doing the perfect thing. It's about doing something. You and I were created for a purpose. We were created to do the good works he designed us for. And that could start right now, today, tomorrow, this week. And so for the next 4 weeks, we're going to talk about what it means to do something in a way that aligns with God's mission in the world around us. We're going to learn what it means to act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly. But before we leave, I want to encourage you with one final thing. I know we can see what's going on in the world right now and begin to wonder if it will ever change, right? Like, if this is ever going to go away. It's been here for so long. This has come up again. Is this ever going to go away? Will it ever reach a point where this is no longer a thing? And I want you to know, yes, it will. In fact, as Micah speaks against the injustice in his society, he also speaks of hope. And in chapter 4, he says something I found very encouraging, and I hope you will too. Here's what he says in Micah 4:3. He says, he will arbitrate between many peoples and settle disputes between many peoples. They will beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nations will not use weapons against other nations, and they will no longer train for war. Basically, Micah is saying there will be a time when there will be no need for weapons or harsh words. Can you even imagine that? People won't be treating others unfairly, but as individuals of worth and value. And when that happens, we'll no longer have to have laws in place to make sure justice is held or make preparations to defend against rioting or attacks or anything like that. We won't even have to worry about that. Instead, our only concern will be improving the world. So there will be no need for weapons because we'll be improving the world together. We won't need weapons. We'll only need tools. And so that's where he talks about turning our swords into plowshares and our spears into pruning hooks. Because weapons won't be needed anymore. They'll be useless. This is what we have to look forward to. And this is what we are fighting for. But in the meantime, we have a part to play in bringing that hope and justice to the world we live in now. Seeing heaven here on earth. To see ourselves and others as God's masterpieces, designed for good works. To fill our hearts with a desire for justice. To see wrong things made right. To open our eyes, ears, and heart to opportunities to do the good works God has prepared in advance for us to do. To have courage and perseverance to do something. So I don't know what that means for you. I don't know what God's prompting you to do, but here's what I want to encourage you with this week. Don't worry about doing the perfect thing. Simply start this week by doing something. Don't sit in silence, because that's where injustice grows and breeds, and it won't go away if we all just do that. But instead, I encourage you to follow whatever God's prompting you to do. Don't get so worried about if it's going to be the exact right thing or the perfect thing, but instead step out and do something. And then we'll see you in the next one as we continue to talk about what that something looks like in accordance to God and what He desires for us as we act justly, love mercy, and walk humbly. Love you guys. Peace.